Good morning, everybody. Here we are at Red Pine Quilt Shop, ready to do Tuesday tips and tricks. And my name is Phyllis, and I'm sure that some of you have probably seen me do a few other things here. Most of the time, someone that's doing this besides Joy is a former teacher, and you can always tell a teacher, but you can't tell them much. And just so you know, I've never been a teacher, so bear with me. I hope I can make this clear to you. Today we're going to talk about faux cathedral window. I like to call it faux cathedral window rather than fake. I think it sounds better. Traditionally, cathedral window is all done by hand. And when I first saw it, I loved it and I thought I need to do this. And this was my first go at cathedral window. And I think I had visions of grandeur because my plan was to make a whole quilt. And it was like, oh, I don't think that's going to happen. But I do love the look of it. So my next best thing was to make a pin cushion. And you'll see I fussy cut a piece of Tula Pinks fabric and made this pin cushion. It is made by hand other than when you sew the two squares together. And on the back side, I fussy cut a different one. So I just love the look of it. And I then had, and some time back, had seen a pattern. I've heard it called other things rather than cathedral window. I've heard it called peekaboo. So you've probably seen it. It's been around for a while. But I have done several projects with it, and one of them being this quilt that we're seeing here that is still in progress. It's using my favorite fabrics. I have several favorites. This is Kimberbell fabric, and it is in process. And you'll see, that's why we have these little edges sticking up here, and I'll be talking about those a little bit later. But this is going to be a queen size quilt when it's done. I made twin quilts for my granddaughters, and they were done with 30s prints and looked a lot like this runner that's done with 30s prints. Now, the thing about cathedral window done this way is when you are done, it's done. You don't have to send it to a long armor, so it saves you that much money. And I think that the quilt pattern on the back is actually kind of cool. And it might show up a little better on this one because I used a little bit darker thread on that one. So I'm going to show you how I did this step by step. The first thing that you need to do is make a template. Now, you can make, and I have been quilting for a long, long time. The first quilt I made, we cut all our templates out of the lids of ice cream buckets, traced around them, and cut them out with a scissors. So quilting has come a long ways over the years, and thank goodness that it has. But for the project that I'm going to show you today, this is the template I made. And you'll see it's a smaller template than this, so you can do any size circle that you want. And actually, this is the lid of a cottage cheese container. Okay, the other thing you need as a template is you need a square that's just going to touch the corners of your circle, like so. And you'll see my square is made out of the lid of an ice cream bucket. So that way you get to eat a lot of ice cream if you need a lot of templates. And then I did graduate and use template plastic on some of these as we got new products around. So that's what you need for your template. And the first step that you'll do when you're making one of these quilts is to trace your fabric on the wrong side of, you trace your circle on the wrong side of your fabric. And I probably should have used fabric other than a batik so I would be able to explain that a little bit better. But if you trace on the print side, your print will show. If you trace on your more solid side, then the solid will show in the middle and the prints will be the turnaround pieces. So it kind of depends on the look you want. It's probably not a bad idea to make a couple and see what you like best. So you trace around your circle. After you get that done, you place your your fabric with the batting or the backing, right sides together on a piece of batting. Now I used dream cotton for my batting on these, and on my runner I believe I used a lightweight polyester batting. You don't want it to get too heavy for you. So in a bigger quilt, the other thing you can use is just flannel. If you opt to use flannel, I would definitely pre-wash it, because flannel will shrink a little bit more than your regular cotton prints will. So be sure to do that but it will make your quilt a little bit lighter weight and it won't be as stiff. Once you get those 3 layered, you will sew directly on the circle. And at this point, I say walking foot, walking foot, walking foot. If you don't use your walking foot, you'll start here and come around to here and you will have a pucker. Almost can't avoid it. So just make sure that you sew around it, and you'll see that I used a variegated thread on this, which added a little interest, I think. Okay, so you sew around that. The next thing you're going to do is to trim that close to the drawn line. So if you have a concave circle or convex circle that you are going to turn right side out, we always have to sew or cut those little clips in there, and that way you still wind up with points. If you use a pinking shears and you need a good shears to go through those layers, you can actually trim pretty close to your seam. And when you turn it, it's going to make all the difference in the world. So I'm going to show you the trick now to turning this. What you would do is to put your template on your circle with your points pretty much touching your sewn line, and then draw a line out here someplace that is, you don't want it too close to this, but probably about the middle. And you can use any kind of a pen you want, pencil, whatever, because it is going to be covered up. So you draw that line after you lay your template on your circle. Then you're going to slit it. And to slit it, the only trick is you need to be sure that you just get that top layer of fabric. If you don't, you're in trouble. But that's when I make just a tiny clip at that point, put my pointy scissors in there, and cut to the end of my slit. Okay, so once you've done that, your next step is to turn it and press it. And I know you've heard Joy talk about the point-to-point turner. It is amazing for this project because you just slip it in your slit, just like this, and you run it around that outside circle, and you're going to have a nice round circle. No points. It's wonderful the way it works. So you turn that right side out, make sure your seam is out there where it's supposed to be, and press it really good. I did mention that I had sometimes when I had my circles sewn, I would give my pinking shears to my husband and have him trim these out. So you might want to try that. It works really good. Most of the time. Not always. Okay, so once you have done that part, have your circles all pressed, you once again will take that square template, lay it on here, and trace around it. And you'll see I've done that, traced around it. And again, you can use any kind of pen because it's going to be covered up. And then you can eyeball and do your quilting X across the middle. I have seen it done without that, but I really like the way that looks, especially on my back side when I'm quilting. I like that X on there. I think it adds a lot because you get an interesting quilting pattern. Okay, so when you get your X sewed on there, that's when you're ready to put them together. And to put them together, I have often said I am not much of a pinner, but this is a point where I do use pins. So I have 2 circles put together with my back sides, and you see my trace line here on the front. And I've put a couple pins in there, and I will sew on that line. And You can do these as a 4-patch if you want. You can do them as a row if you want. It is up to you how you do that. I did mine in rows, and I can tell you why I did. If you do them in rows, when you're ready to turn your melons, if you will, if you turn them back, you can sew from here to here to here and just keep going around, and that is a point where you do get a nice quilting pattern on your back. And I am going to show you the back side of this one using my variegated thread with black background. I think it added some interest. I like the way it looks. And you know, there are no quilt police. It does not have to be perfect. And your finished product, you will be so happy with your project once it's done. So that's pretty much what I have to show you. Oh, at this point too, I should mention, if you want to, you can leave your border scalloped, or you might opt to turn this back and have a straight border. I am going to leave mine scalloped. I like the look of it. So there too, you can choose your own options at that point. So I thank you for watching. I hope I've given you a little something to think about.